Alright, so you want to know about writing. How to write a novel, the ins and outs. There are several books you could read, but obviously you found this to be a better way to learn. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Nonetheless, you're obviously still going to read all these books, but 4 of them stand out, and they have enough different information in it that each one is worth reading. Between the Lines by Jessica Morrell covers the basics. It actually covers a whole lot of things. Pretty much everything you're going to read every other book is probably covered in that one. How to Write a Damn Good Novel, both 1 and 2 by James Frey. Writing Popular Fiction by Dean Koontz, which covers genre writing. On Writing by Stephen King, which offers a different perspective on writing, which is a definite must-read. His insight is different from other books that you will read.
The most important thing in writing is to be as direct and precise as possible.
Vary your sentences according to the elements of style.
Don't mess around with big words or show off your vocabulary. Use words that are direct and powerful. Instead of saying saw, say he or she spotted. Instead of saying he grabbed the baseball bat from the truck, say he snatched the baseball bat from the truck. Instead of using things like pick up or grabbed, you can say things like snatched or yanked or jerked. Now, Stephen King says, try not to use any adverbs at all. These are usually words that end in ly. But most authors, including Stephen King, use the occasional adverb. But most of the time, it's not needed. Stephen King also recommends reading The Elements of Style, which is really pretty much a short pamphlet. Don't write a sentence like, I stepped into the spooky public hall and slowly pulled the door shut. Rather write, I stepped into the public hall and pulled the door shut. This sentence is directly from Forever Odd by Dean Koontz, the second and not the first. And of course, the most important thing about being direct in your writing is what is showing and not telling anyways.
Yeah, what is showing and not telling? I mean, what is it? What is it?
To show is like being a director of a movie, and telling is like summarizing a story. So show, don't tell.
So basically you also don't want to overtell, because then it's too much to read. And make sure you eat your food and drink water. If not, you look like me, like a raisin.
How to Write a Damn Good Novel 2 by James Frey. He talks about pretending that you're a director of a movie. This is good advice. Basically pretend that you're trying to write what the camera picks up in a movie. So in your mind you see the movie and describe what you want the camera picking up, and only describe those important parts that a director would want to tell in a story. You don't want the boring parts. And show it, not tell it. And the difference sometimes can be subtle. Sometimes it actually feels like you're showing somebody when you're actually telling. An example of telling would be, he was scared when he picked up the telephone. Now let's pretend we're the director of a movie, and we want to show the audience on camera that he's scared while he's picking up the telephone. If we then imagine that we're the director of a movie and we want to show this person is scared as he's picking up the telephone or nervous, we might first show him picking up the telephone and maybe his hands tremble. Then he puts it to his mouth and talks maybe in a scared voice. So how do we do this with words? We want the reader to see this in their mind. Well, you can show it and not tell it. Don't say he's scared, that's telling, but show that he's scared. His hands trembled. He picked up the phone and in a shaky voice said. Now you have shown that he is either scared or nervous, without actually telling. You don't want to overshow. Stephen King gives a good example of how not to overshow and how to paint a picture. Basically, that's what we're trying to do, is paint a picture in the mind of the reader. And it doesn't take much detail as long as the details you use are strong. And so Stephen King gives the example of, I have in front of me a red tablecloth, and on that there is a cage, and in the cage there is a white bunny, and on the back of the white bunny is a blue number 8. Now you have pretty much seen this image in your mind that I have painted with these direct details. So don't overshow. Only show as much as is needed to paint the necessary picture in the mind. So direct, powerful words will paint pictures in the mind. The red, rusty wagon paints a picture in the mind. But you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to give too much detail, because then you don't allow the reader to use their imagination. Then it's not theirs. If you want your reader to identify with a character, for instance, the character has to be theirs. So don't overly describe the character. Don't say he has this small kind of nose and this square kind of jaw and these big kind of ears, unless that is very important for the character, that he has big ears. Leave majority of what the character looks like to the reader for his imagination or her imagination. Just give details that she was a pretty schoolgirl nerd. Everyone knows what a nerd looks like. Exercise you can do is watch a favorite scene from a movie. Then tell that scene. Write it down. You should be able to tell the scene in about 1 or 2 paragraphs. This will basically be a summary. Now watch the same scene, and this time show the scene, which should take up a couple pages, or at least a page. And be careful not to overly show, but try to show in text what the director shown on film. Be careful to describe things to describe things in such a way that will paint a picture as what you're seeing. And next I would like to show an example from a movie and do just that. I'm not going to act this out, I'm just going to read it. And then we'll watch the scene. "All right," Vincent said. "Count to 3. "All right," Lance said. 1. With his eyes focused on the red dot drawn on her breast, Vincent raised the syringe above his head. His hands were clammy, but he knew what had to be done. Blood streamed down Mia's nose, now half dried, her eyes almost fully shut. She was zoned out. Vincent knew she was dead if he didn't plunge this syringe straight through her chest plate and into her heart. 2, Lance said. Adrenaline dripped from the needle. Vincent licked his trembling lips. Sweat pricked on his forehead. His eyes focused on the red dot. 3. Vincent dropped his arm and pierced her heart. There was a thump. Mia's eyes shot open. She sprung up, gasped for air like she had not breathed in minutes, thrashed around, and choked, and coughed, and breathed. Syringe jutted from her chest. Mia took short, quick breaths as if trying to recover from the wind being knocked out of her. "If you're all right, then say something," Lance said. "Something," Mia said.
All right, count to 3. All right, ready? 1. 2. 3. If you're all right, then say something.
Something.